Hello, welcome to our podcast, First Name Basis, where we sit down with TribalScale employees and special guests to have an authentic conversation on a variety of tech, business, and innovation topics. I'm Rachel Wexler, Director of Marketing, and today I'm sitting with Lori, our President and Chief Operating Officer. We'll be talking about innovation, our plans for the future, and why community is so important to us.
Hi.
So Lori, just to kick it off, firstly, I wanted to say for all of the listeners, there is an option to type in your questions, and so we'll get to any of those as we go. But to start off, I wanted to hear from Lori a little bit about why she joined. So Lori's been our President and COO for about 3 months, and in that time frame, you've had the chance to take in our culture. You've had a chance to learn and understand our unique approach to innovation, and then all of the quirkiness about our team.
Yeah.
So curious to see how you would describe our culture and what really makes us tick.
Yeah, absolutely. So pleasure to be here chatting with you. I think, in an environment like this, 3 months can feel like 3 years, right? Because you dive in and it's very fast paced and you can kind of get to know the organization very quickly, which is one of the things that I love. I love the pace and the pace of change in an organization like TribalScale. Maybe just to take a step back, I've had the good fortune of working in a number of really great organizations throughout my career. And one of the things I found is that you can really get the vibe for a company really quickly just by walking in the front doors, of a headquarters or main office, talking to some of the people, kind of looking around and listening. And I had the opportunity to come into the TribalScale offices before I joined. And as you know, I had the opportunity to speak at a couple of the takeover conferences. And I think I'd say the vibe that resonated with me was the fact that, TribalScale felt, even before I joined, like a very creative organization, which I love. I'd say that I have found that in spades now having joined. The creativity and the collaboration within the company, the number of amazing, talented people that we have working here and their way of working and working together is really exciting to me. I think the clients that we serve was also a really, kind of key point of interest to me. The fact that we work in a number of different verticals and we work with, large corporate enterprise organizations that have, big, meaty kind of digital transformation challenges to solve. And, we're really well equipped to help them solve them. So, the way that we work, either going in and doing, sort of the project services type of engagement, all the way through to full digital transformation engagements that are longer term, I think serves organizations very well. They can find the right way to work with us and vice versa.
Great. So in your 3 months, what would you say is the best part about joining TribalScale? What have you enjoyed the most?
It always comes back to the people for me. Like I said, I think having spent a lot of time in these first few months on sort of coffee chats and getting to know teams and various areas of our business, and also just spending time with people one-on-one and learning more about what they do, their background and what they bring to the table, that it inspires me, it gives me energy, and that's the thing that excites me the most about TribalScale is that combination of just amazing resources and talent and the potential, that lies ahead because of it.
Amazing. And so I'm really lucky that I get to work with you. I think one of the first things I said to you was I noticed that Lori uses so many adjectives. So what I love is Lori brought in this new energy into our company. We started off a new year with you joining. And then I also loved that you always are explaining things like, this is incredibly amazing that we get to work together. And so that's just what I've noted from working with you. So on that, I would love to know how you would describe your own leadership style. Because right away, what I described it as a very excitable, happy, upbeat type of style. But I would love to see how you would describe it.
Yeah, I think I would describe my leadership style as very much, spend really solid time hiring and getting to know the people that you have working with you and, running different areas of the business. Make sure you hire slow and smart and have the right people in the right roles. And then ultimately, I would say empower them, support them and make sure they have the resources that they need, remove barriers that are in their way, but essentially empower them and get out of their way. I am not a micromanager by any means, as I'm sure you've noted at this point, but I do love to really understand, the various areas of a business. And I really love to understand the way that people think about decisions that they're making and priorities that they're setting. So I'll weigh in on those things, but ultimately, I think if you've spent the time to make sure you have the right people around you helping to run your business, you need to trust their judgment and sort of get out of their way, as I said.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you have talked about especially when you came in, that you're really making sure that we're growing our company and our culture together at the same time. And so I don't know if you want to speak a little bit about what those two things mean. So as we grow, but we're growing and enhancing our culture, but then also growing and enhancing our offerings and our work to our clients. We're also expanding globally. So I know that that's really what you've been concentrating on.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, the people aspect, people and culture are critically important to me. Also, how we set our priorities and what our business strategy is. I mean, they obviously go hand in hand. I think it's important for organizations like TribalScale, which phenomenal growth to date. The company's grown from 0 to 200 in 3 years and 5 offices and international presence. So all of that's really, really exciting. I think what's also really important as we think about this next stage of growth is ensuring that we're growing responsibly, right? And keeping our culture and the stability and health of, the people that are part of our organization, sort of first and foremost. Thinking about the products that we offer obviously weighs into the skills and talent that we hire. So to me, they very much go hand in hand. And I think, fast growth is fantastic, but it needs to be responsible as well, right? Yeah. So responsible growth is something you'll hear me talk about a lot.
I do. Yeah, it's great. And then right when you came on board, we had recently gone through a significant rebrand, which I know was a lot of the podcasts we've had in the past. And so we didn't just change our colors and our branding and our image, but we also changed our messaging. Our mission became to write the future. And we also changed up a little bit of how we're selling the company and some of the products that we're going to be focused on. So I'm curious what the mission of Write the Future means to you.
So I will answer that, but first I have to say kudos to you and to your team, because I think, the brand, you asked me why I joined. I would say that is also a key part of why I joined, is that I, have seen, as being part of the ecosystem, the strength of the TribalScale brand. And I think, that's a great testament to the work that you and the team have done. The rebrand is fantastic. I mean, it's a really fresh, I'd say like punchy and innovative feel to the brand, which speaks perfectly to the company that we are. I might be
biased, but I might agree.
I love the Write the Future, mission too. I think obviously there's a double entendre there, but it makes complete sense. And it speaks back to my point of, growing and building technology responsibly. So I love the fact that, we are literally, building the technology solutions that, users will engage with for years to come, but we're doing so in a responsible way as well. And focused on the community around us, right? And how we can engage with those communities. So it's probably a triple entendre if you think about it.
Yeah, and I know later on we're going to talk a little bit about community, but for me, the rebrand and the mission of Writing the Future also is like you said, a triple entendre of not just from our company, but how we engage with external partners and our external community and the causes that are really important to us. And I know we were going through that whole exercise. You wanted to feel like we were a company that also embodied and cherished those things as well. And so we have a unique approach to innovation at TribalScale. How would you describe our approach?
Yeah, so I would say it's a very collaborative and partnering approach, not just internally, but with our clients. So, as I've been learning more about our approach, one of the things that very much speaks to me is the pair programming model. I love the fact, having been in large corporate organizations, and obviously there's always a desire to have a sense of ownership over anything that you're building and developing within your organization. So, I love the fact that we pair our engineers with engineers within our client organizations so that, we're able to write really quality code together. We're able to basically overcome that barrier of moving quickly. We move much faster as a result. And we
15% faster.
15% faster. And also that element of, developing individuals as part of that process, but, being able to step away or move on to the next engagement with, that organization feeling a sense of ownership over what's been built through that process, I think is really, really important. And to me, as I said, it's exciting to see that that's the way that we work, because it's, you wouldn't have a sense as a client necessarily that there's, you're outsourcing development. You're really, bringing development into your organization and developing your own people as a result.
Yeah, and I can speak to that. I just got back from South by Southwest in Austin, where we met with a lot of our clients, past, current, and that was really what they set it apart for us, is that it feels like a partnership, and we call our clients partners and our partners because we all want to work together. And so we pair program, but we also pair between marketing and sales. We pair between our clients and our partners. And so it's really entrenched in our culture of just how we go about doing innovative work.
Yeah, and I think it is part of what, again, back to the DNA of TribalScale, it's part of what's so exciting about the organization, and you can see that when you walk around the office, right? You can see, or offices, these amazing, talented, engineers working together and building that code and sort of working out problems together and checking each other's work, etc. So, I think it's both a unique but also a really exciting model.
Yeah, definitely. And I always forget, because it's now so common to me, because I live and breathe it every day, that only 5% of companies practice it. So I think that we were chatting about that yesterday, that we sometimes even forget how uncommon it truly is, especially with our global brands that we work with.
Yeah, absolutely. I would also point out, I love the fact that we're flexible around that, right? So it's a model that we believe very strongly in, but we also recognize it doesn't necessarily work for every client. So there's some flexibility in the way that we work.
Yeah, but overall, having that flexibility and then also having that as a practice, we know increases job satisfaction and even just the collaboration, like you mentioned, between all of our team, because everyone's worked together at some point in some sort of capacity.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so on that, I would love to talk about some specific projects. I know some we can talk about, some not so much. So I would love to talk about certain projects that you think demonstrate this unique approach.
Yeah, I am most excited, I would say, about the transformation projects that I've been learning about. So work where we're engaged on an ongoing basis, and we have a number of pods that are working within an organization, and we're pairing our team and the internal technology resources and really tackling big challenges. And as we complete those big challenges, we're moving on and tackling the next challenge together. So it's less of a, sort of one and done, and more of a long-term collaboration and partnership. So that type of transformation work, which, again, I'm excited to see that we're doing with large insurance companies, we're working with large banks, lots of partners in the media space. So lots of brand names. I wish we could talk about them all.
Me too.
Because they're very exciting. But, ultimately each engagement is quite different, even though the same principles are in place, which is also really neat to see.
Yeah, and for me, I've been on the road a bunch the last few months, and so what I personally love to see, because I get to work with clients and I get to work with our internal team and I get to work with our partners as well, is seeing all of them come together. So we're partners with Google, we're partners with Amazon, and we're starting to see them have conversations with our clients and with our other partners. And people in the automotive space are now talking to media. We're now talking to different cloud computing software brands, and they're figuring out how they can work together to really drive innovation and all the different approaches to it together, which is what I think is most exciting, is that we're not working in silos even as a greater industry. We're trying to now band together and figure out how we can work together.
Yeah, and I think that's been one of the really exciting aspects of being part of Takeover as well, is seeing the technology and the innovation that's happening in different verticals that we support. and how that really, it's cross-functional, right? So the really exciting new project that we've engaged in, in the media space can bring great ideas into the financial services space and vice versa. So the more that we can create that community and share those ideas, I think the more that we're contributing to writing the future.
Yeah, one of a partner that we've worked with, iHeartRadio, they just announced that they launched 2 really exciting projects, and so that's one of the a really innovative company that's working to cross-platform, cross-project. It was in the press. They had a press release about their Family Fire app, bringing it to different demographics within their platform, bringing it into living rooms, using voice technology. Their Android app, so lots of different exciting announcements coming out.
Yeah, for sure. And as someone who spends a lot of time commuting and in my car, I love, seeing and learning about some of the amazing work that we're doing around voice technology in the automotive vertical. There's lots of exciting work there and great announcements and partnerships to come.
Yeah.
So
my favorite row in our company right now is the row of auto, because they all have their simulators.
Yeah.
And so there's the steering wheels, then there's the 2 pairing screens, there's the monitors. I find that the best row to walk down.
I do too, and I have been caught sort of standing with a coffee and just observing. It's the way I like to learn, is being really hands-on. So I agree. It's a great space.
Yeah. And so on that, we've talked about pairing, we've talked about companies and different industries coming together. We also have our venture studios arm to TribalScale. How do you see that is entrenched and intertwined in our model as well?
So maybe just to talk a little bit about venture studios for folks who are listening. So the idea of actually understanding what the problems are in a particular vertical and, culling a number of different perspectives on what those problems are, and then going through a process where we actually look for ideas and solutions to those problems, which, you could talk to 18 or 20, very seasoned people in a particular industry. They will have similar problems. Right, so there are similar solutions that you can bring to bear to solve those problems, and then going through that process of actually looking at, what startups are doing in this space around, solutioning, doing hackathons, etc. So I think that process of bringing really interesting and innovative ideas to solve really difficult, challenging problems in a particular space is very meaningful and very timely. So, I have loved learning about that process, but also seeing the outcome. So I actually joined just as we were completing the cohort that was focused on the automotive space. So it's not a space that I have a great deal of background in, but sitting through the pitch day and learning about, both what our engineers had developed as prototypes and potential solutions through our hackathon, as well as the work the Venture Studios team did to take a look at the market and what really interesting early stage startups were doing, again, around solutions. And listening to the 8 pitches was fascinating. Yeah. And as I said earlier, coming from financial services, kind of insurance and health background, I could quickly see how some of those technology solutions could apply, and even some of those companies could apply in that other vertical. So, I think the model of venture studios being part of an organization like TribalScale that's focused on digital transformation and working with enterprise organizations makes a great deal of sense, because we can bring together, entrepreneurs and really innovative, fast-paced development with these corporate organizations that have big problems to solve, right? And then provide options around partnership, acquisition.
Well, we just had a great announcement come out of Venture Studios. So we had our company Every.
Yes. Yeah, which is it's a great testament to, the fact that this model can work very well. So Every being acquired by Wave, excellent news, and I think also really exciting for the team here that was, part of that engagement. Yeah,
and because, our Venture Studios model, we're giving the services out to those startups. We worked so closely with the Every team, and so we were really excited about that across the board. Lots of people were involved.
Yeah, I mean, that's another great example of, the community aspect of TribalScale. So, having the entrepreneurs who are building Every in the space every day and working with the TribalScale team, it's their success becomes, in some ways your success as well,
Yeah.
because you're so excited to see that great.
Oh, it was felt with everybody here.
Yeah, for sure.
We just had a town hall this morning, and we spent some time looking back at what that means, and just being really excited for Jeremy and the Every team.
Absolutely.
And so you touched upon it briefly as you were talking about the cohort that you just had heard the pitches from, but your background is in health.
Yes.
Recently. And so do you see that, we primarily work in automotive, travel, media, sports, entertainment, and financial services. Could you see health being something that we concentrate on in the next few months?
A very loud yes.
Yeah.
So I am fully inserting my bias around the opportunities in the health space. So we are looking at a cohort for venture studios that would focus on health tech. And we've already engaged some of the folks from my network and from the networks of other individuals on our executive team who are bringing really interesting challenges to the table that we could solve through that process. I think there's a ton of potential there. And again, as I said, there's the ability to take a look at the other two cohorts that we've run and some of the technology and also the entrepreneurs and companies that were part of that process and how those particular innovations could apply to the health space. You can quickly kind of connect the dots, right? If you're familiar with a different vertical where these fits can happen. So absolutely, I'm really excited, and I think the venture studio team is already doing some really amazing research and interview work to start to pull together the focus for that particular cohort.
I can't wait for that as well.
Me too.
And so we've touched upon this at the beginning of the podcast, but community is really important to both me personally, you personally, but then also TribalScale as a whole. We really value community. Sheetal says it all the time, your network is your net worth. Yeah. And so we really started TribalScale with that in mind, and being a relationship building company. And so there's that one side of it, but then there's the other side of giving back. And how we can give back to our community and some of the causes that are most passionate to us. And so what are some of the causes and things that you're involved with? Yeah,
so I am very, very passionate about advancing and promoting women in the technology space and women in all industries. And so, as you know, we're both involved with Move the Dial, and I love the work that Jody Kovitz is doing with Move the Dial. And, I think one of the amazing things is, joining TribalScale, you were already involved. Sheetal, Roger, many of the other folks in the organization are engaging and sharing the same passions. So certainly Move the Dial is one area where I have a lot of passion and want to continue to provide a lot of support. Tech for Sick Kids is another initiative that I've shared a passion for with TribalScale prior to joining. So that's work that we will continue to do together. And then I'd say there's a number of other really great initiatives that are about giving back in the communities in which we work and live. So whether that's in Dubai or here in Toronto, getting involved with initiatives like Dress for Success, food drives, etc., seasonal things like around the holidays, for example. Actually, I joined, as you know, mid-December, so I came in at a time where there was a tremendous amount of really awesome activity happening.
We do that holiday give back.
Yeah. So, again, I think all those kinds of initiatives that are just part of the DNA of the organization, they appeal to me very much.
Yeah. No, since Lori started, we've also introduced a lot of really exciting things in our culture. So we have a culture committee, and that's really where they're responsible for bringing forward things that are really passionate towards them and really coming to the table to support our community and things like the Ontario Food Bank Association. So we'll see a lot more of that coming from TribalScale as well.
And we now have a swear jar.
I was going to mention that was next, as you talked about Tech for Sick Kids.
Yes, so we have created a virtual swear jar where individuals who, again, we're not necessarily policing this on a regular basis, but we want to make sure that we're maintaining a culture of professionalism, and I think it's a small and somewhat fun thing that we can do as part of our quirky culture.
So what Lori's not saying is she's calling it quirky culture, but when she came in, one of the things you noted was that there was a bit of swearing around TribalScale. I think that happens when you have a co-founder-led company and everyone's really close, and that's amazing 99.9% of the time, but I think there was a bit of comfort there, and so there was some swearing that was happening, which was stemming from passion and all positive things, but we implemented this swear jar. And so now every time somebody swears, swears, they have to donate to Tech for Sick Kids.
Yeah, which is a win-win.
Yeah,
right?
But today no one swore. And so we didn't. We've noted. I think this is the first day.
Yeah,
that there was none. So we have to find something else.
Everything,
yeah,
right. And I'm all for passion, and you know, obviously that comes out in different ways. But yeah, I think that collectively across the senior leadership team, there was agreement that we wanted to make sure that we were holding ourselves to the same standards as we'd like, you know, for folks on our team who are client facing, you know, and creating a culture that's really about professionalism and respect. And so I think it's a really simple, small, quirky, but win-win thing that we could do.
Yeah. And so when we talk about community, we obviously are really involved and passionate about Move the Dial. So we are doing our own Move the Dial Stories event, and that's coming up on April 16th. So we're really excited for that. But then we're also trying to build our own communities out of some of our different client base and our network that we have. So we are building a financial services led female community. So there's a little bit of a financial services spin. We've done a lot of events, and we're trying to bring that group together and support a group that is generally speaking not super female led.
Right.
But in addition to that, we also are doing a breakfast, which I would love to talk a little bit about.
Sure, yeah. So April 3rd.
Yeah.
We are doing a breakfast event where we are actually, we've put together a panel, and we have some women who have, I'd say, more experience in their careers, which is code for we're a little older. And the group is actually going to speak to lessons that I would share with my 22-year-old self. So this is an initiative that we've seen, you know, a number of organizations and communities sort of get around, right, and back up. And I think it's a really wonderful way to reflect on, you know, kind of looking back really early in your career, what you wish you knew then, right? And I think sharing those lessons with some years under your belt in your career with folks who are perhaps earlier in their career is just a really nice way to create the right conversation, right? And empower people to make different decisions based on lessons you've learned as a result, perhaps of not making the decision that you know, wished you had made at the time, or in a lot of cases, not necessarily speaking up, right? And having the confidence and feeling empowered to do the things that with some time you realize, you know, are the right things to do. Yeah. So I think having that conversation and sharing those lessons is a great way for TribalScale to kind of open the dialogue and engage in it.
So to put you on the spot as we start to wrap up, what would be one thing that you would tell your 22-year-old self?
Yeah, I think it's exactly what I was just sort of, I guess, alluding to, which is, you know, I think really early in my career, I was more accepting and tolerant of, I would just call it behavior that was like less comfortable to me as someone young in my career. And you would have the feeling that perhaps you just had to roll with things, right? So whether that's language that's being used, or you know, the way that you are or are not being addressed in meetings, or recognition for work that you're doing, you know, it can show up in any number of ways. And I would say the lesson is to really be your own champion, right? And make sure that you have a voice and be willing to perhaps speak up for yourself, even if there's risk attached to that, because you know it's the right thing to do. Right? And I think over time you realize that those moments where you don't speak up for yourself and you know, perhaps convince yourself that that's not the right thing to do, those are the moments you regret, not the moments where you've spoken up.
And if there was one takeaway that you want anybody listening or watching in the future to take away from this, it could be on the future of TribalScale, why you joined, anything that you're excited about, but what would that takeaway be?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited about really being in the tech space in Toronto at this point. I think there's just so much amazing momentum and so many incredible people. I was telling Rachel before we started the conversation today that, you know, I just had lunch with an amazing woman who's got some phenomenal experience in this space, and we were talking about, you know, how the fact that even if you know, join the tech ecosystem and you're just sort of new, and potentially coming out of a corporate environment, which we both had done at a certain point, you get to know 10 people, and those 10 people will introduce you to 100 people, right? It's a very close-knit community.
Yeah.
And I think that makes it a really exciting time, but also all of the incredible growth and investment and opportunity, and the fact that TribalScale is right in the heart of that.
Mm-hmm. Great. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to wrap, but if you want to get in touch, if you want to attend our breakfast series, so we have now our TribalScale Breakfast Club, you want to be part of that club, please reach out to me at rachel@tribalscale.com, and then obviously feel free to connect with Lori, myself on LinkedIn. We're both very active on Twitter and social, so please connect with us, and if you have any questions, you want to work with us, partner with us on anything, please reach out.
Absolutely. And I will say that I heard that you and Jane had wine.
We did.
In your last podcast. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking forward to the next podcast.
Yeah. Well, there's still so much more that I want to talk about, so we'll have to schedule that.
Yeah.
And I will bring wine.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.